Hi everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. This is the horror movie show or podcast here in the Mailed Fuzz podcast network. I'm Peter, and with me is Tim,
Hello.
Joseph,
Hello.
and well, Kevin's here too, I guess.
Hello.
Oh,
No hesitation. Alright, so this is our horror movie show. Every week we talk about a horror movie from the past or the present, and this week this is a film that I was determined to cover before we finished the year because it's not only my favourite horror movie of the year, it is my favourite film of the year. And we got a creepy door in the background. That's lovely.
it's my cat. It's my cat.
God, everyone in Joseph's house is so intrusive. It's like, if it's not the wife, it's the cat or the son or God damn
Why
it.
can't you be a lonely hermit like the rest of us?
Exactly. Exactly.
Because I
Join
like
us.
having people around me.
Anyway, the movie we are going to talk about today is It Follows, and this is a movie that came out February in the UK. We got it early for some reason. Then it came out in like May, or maybe June in the US. And
I think it went more like March.
no, it was like 3 months apart. Because I remember like waiting for you guys to get it after it came out, because we got it quite a nice chunk early. But anyway, this was came out in February in the UK and a bit later in the US, and it was directed by David Robert Mitchell, who I'd never heard of before this movie. I think he has like one other movie to his name. I'm going to have to go check that out at some point. But we're here to talk about It Follows, and full spoilers as always on this show. But the basic plot of It Follows is pretty simple. There is a ghost / demon / entity which is passed from person to person through the act of sex. When the person gets the entity, it follows them slowly, and if it touches them, they will die, or if it gets a hold of them, it will kill them. And the only way to get rid of it is to pass it on to another person through sex. If the person gets killed, it reverts back to the previous person that passed it on. And that's the movie. We've got our main character, Jay, played by Micah Monroe, or Micah Monroe. I don't know how to say her name, but yeah. So she plays Jay, and she's the main character who gets this from her boyfriend, or it's not even her boyfriend really. It's like they're on like a second or third date or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's basically the setup for the movie. So. Yeah, obviously, I love this movie. I open by saying it's my favourite movie of the year. So let's go around and get a general sort of sense of how we feel about this before we start talking specifics. Kevin,
Yes,
did you like It Follows?
I did. I really liked it. I mean, it's not. I don't think I really love it as much as Peter does. I don't think.
Oh, that's right. Oh, now that you're talking, I remember you gave this a 7 out of 10 on
Yeah.
one of your reviews. Not to spoil
Yeah.
the scores at the end of the show, but
I think it's improved since then. I think like,
interesting.
upon second viewing, I think I enjoyed it more. But it's not like a 10 out of 10. It hasn't got that from me. But
I think the
no,
movie stayed the same. You just got smarter
Yeah.
when you watched it.
in those 4 months. No, but I mean, you can obviously tell the influence it had. No, the sort of the homage it pays to the early horror films and John Carpenter and all that. But even just away from that, it's a really good film, and I think the simple. I love films with a simple plot, and this plot was really simple, and it was all about execution for it. And I think
Yeah.
that they got the execution really well.
Yeah,
I think-
I actually often find that as someone who actually tries to write scripts and make short films and wants to make movies, I often find that when you explain an idea to someone who doesn't write movies and doesn't you'll tell them an idea and they'll think it's too simple. And to me, that's a sign that they don't know what they're talking about because it's like, no, it should be simple sometimes,
Yeah.
and it's all about how you do it. To you, it sounds dull and boring because you don't get to see in my head how I'm planning on doing it. You're not seeing how the shots are going to go together, what the mood's going to be like, and all that sort of stuff. And this is a very, very simple plot. And you mentioned sort of homages to John Carpenter. There's a lot of that in the movie, right from the synth score, which is fantastic,
Yeah.
by the way. I think it's Disaster Piece is the artist behind the score. Fantastic soundtrack. Right away from early on, it had me engrossed in the film. Just hearing that synth come in, and it drew me into the film. even that feels like a homage to John Carpenter because he used so much synth in all of his scores. There's a lot of tracking shots as they're like sort of walking down like the side of the road with all the green sort of suburban area around them. Felt very Halloween, those shots. So that's pretty great stuff. We've lost Joseph for the meantime, but Tim, how did you feel about It Follows?
I absolutely love it. It's fantastic. Yeah, I don't want to get into too much specifics yet, but like Kevin said, like the execution was so well done. Just the atmosphere, the music, everything was firing on all cylinders for me, and I could not agree 100% more that this is amazing. I'd have to think about what else came out this year, but so I don't know if this would be my number one movie, but if not, it's definitely in like the top 3.
Yeah, cool. Joseph?
This has been my top movie for the year, most of the year since I first saw it in theaters. I would say though that it was recently dethroned, but it's definitely still in my top 5. It was certainly probably one of my biggest surprise movies. One that I didn't go in expecting a lot of. I thought maybe it's a little overhyped. We'll see, but no, I was pleasantly surprised. I loved this movie when I first saw it.
Oh, well, we're all at a similar page then. Of course, Kevin's the one that's slightly off.
It's not that I can find anything that I overtly dislike about it. There are some things that don't like click with me immediately, but like overall, I really loved it. But it's not. I think Tim mentioned it on his Halloween review on why he didn't give it a 10 is because he didn't have a craving for it, and I think it's the same with me. I don't really have a need to go out and watch this film. It's not like I'm, craving it, and so I think that I can't give it a 10. I can't.
I think like sometimes
we're
when I
not
watch
on ratings. Let's stop talking about ratings. Kevin, you're fucking jumping to the end of the show. Right.
I know what Kevin's like talking about though. Like sometimes like when I watch a movie, like I can recognize that it's very technically well done and I can see why other people like it, but then sometimes you can't even explain it. There's just something that's a little askew or off for you that kind of you still like it, but it keeps it from being like, your thing,
Yeah, well, I mean, let's talk a bit more in depth about the film itself then, because I want to talk about sort of we'll do sort of favourite moments and scenes later, but I want to talk a little bit about what the film actually kind of means and what the sort of subtext is here, because there's a lot you can interpret from this film. The obvious one that some people go to is this is like a parable for sexually transmitted diseases, and that's a very obvious one to go to. I disagree with that. I don't think that's the case. I actually fall into another line of thinking. I've heard a lot of different people talk about how this is actually more about the loss of innocence and growing up, and I think there's a lot of evidence in this movie that supports that. On top of the fact that it's just about sex in general, and like that's just like part of growing up, and it's like the difference between being a kid almost, and like, it's just sort of something that you traditionally is seen. That's when you sort of become an adult, is when you start having sex, even though that's not necessarily always true, because some people have sex at a ridiculously young age these days. So that's there, but there's also a lot of other little things that support this. Like even the speech that I think was her name, Yara, I think the character's name is, the one with the glasses. She, when they're walking to the swimming pool, sort of in the last act of the movie, she talks about how her parents would never let her go beyond 8 Mile in Detroit, because that's where the suburbs ended and the city began. So the whole idea of like this is the safe area, this is where we are as children, and this is where it's dangerous, so you don't go there alone. Also the idea that the parents are never seen in this movie, unless of course at the end it takes the form of Jay's dad. And that whole scene with the pool, it's actually the dad that's that it's taken form of as it's throwing things into the pool. And I thought that was a very interesting touch. Like, I don't know if that's implying that maybe the father wasn't very good, because as much as we don't see the mother either, the mother's referenced multiple times as being around, whereas the father, there's almost no indication that he's still there. Yeah. For whatever reason.
It could be that he's dead. Yes, I just sort of assumed that he died.
Oh, probably. I mean, that's probably the reason, but that doesn't explain why
Yeah.
they've specifically chosen to, or the entity specifically chosen to use that form at the end.
Yeah.
I don't know if there is any like rhyme or reason to who it chooses as it's going through the film.
I think that's right. I think that one of my favorite things about the film is that you can sort of, they, like you mentioned earlier, they don't explain much about it, so you can just sort of, you can discuss, and you can sort of discuss all these ideas, and like each one of them could be equally right, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah, because one of the ones that I really liked is at the end of the film, and of course I said full spoilers here at the start, but I'll just reiterate that again before I start talking about the ending. I love how ambiguous the ending is. I love how it's like, we don't really know if I've solved this problem. Like, that person in the distance could be that thing walking towards us, it might not be. But they're holding hands and they look kind of happy. And to me, what that was really saying was that because they're actually a couple now, and because they're going to be trading this back and forth, they'll be able to cope with it. Because it's not just random sex anymore, it's not just one night stand, it's not, walking out to a boat with 3 random guys on it and getting gangbanged, as that scene was clearly implying. It's a bit more like love, because the director in an interview around the time of the film's release was talking about how love and sex is like, death is always coming for us, but love and sex is one of the small ways we can of like fighting it off just for a little bit.
A brief moment.
Yeah. And I thought it was a very interesting line to throw out there from him. And it really altered how I looked at what this film was really about. It's about the inevitability of death and trying to just escape it, and trying to... It's all about time. It's about trying to have more time.
Speaking of time, there's really another cool thing about it is that it could take place in any time period. It's like everything about it is just... it has a really retro feel.
Well, other than the e-reader and the seashell thing, everything like this could have been set in the 80s at newest, because every TV looks ancient.
Yeah.
The theater they went to
was showing Charade, which is a fantastic film if you've not seen it. It's not a horror movie, but Charade's a fantastic movie.
Yes.
So that was great, and it was just, even at the start, the boyfriend character who's going to pass it on to her, like when they're playing that game of who would you swap places with, like around you, and he picks the kid because he's innocent, he doesn't have to care about anything, and I'm like, that's really driving the themes of the movies home for me. Is like, that's what this is really about. It's about having to deal with all these responsibilities, and maybe the entity coming towards you is just that feeling of responsibility you have to put up with when you get older.
Yeah. It's a good point. Never really thought about it that in depth, but that definitely makes sense.
Well, that's the great thing about it, is you can think about it that way if you want, but even if you don't, if you just want a good movie about a creepy thing coming after you, it's scary.
Oh yeah,
it's creepy, fantastic score. I love how the characters, it's like a little team, and they actually come up with a plan. Like there's the moment when they're like walking towards a swimming pool at the end, and like the music starts playing. It's this really cool theme, and they're gearing up. It's like the end of like Nightmare on Elm Street 3 when they've got a plan to take out Freddy, or something like that, where they're actually putting it into action. They're trying to fight it, and I like that. I like when they actually have a hope of doing something.
Yeah, I always like when characters get a little more proactive, and then I love like. Unfortunately, I feel like we don't see this enough, where it was so like creepy and so subtle. Like it wasn't just like jump scare after jump scare, which I feel like like almost every new movie that's released, like you can count like the percentage of jump scares, and there's stuff in here that could make you jump, but it's not like a jump scare that you normally get in these movies where something jumps out and it's a big music sting. And
the only sort of jump scare I can think of off the top of my head is when they're exploring the guy's house and he has the cans to warn him when one of them hits it. That was the only time I can think of a jump scare off the top of my head.
And that's a fair.
Yeah, it's not even a full. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's fair enough because it makes sense given what it's meant to do. That's what it's there for. It's to alert the people.
They're worried that it may have broken in. Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah, because the whole movie's about suspense, and that's partly why I love it. Because so many horror movies are not about suspense anymore. They're about loud noise.
And this is about looking behind their shoulders, seeing anybody walking towards them. Anything could be it.
And actually, going back to my whole it's about the loss of innocence. Even in the middle of the film, she runs to like the small park and sits in the swing.
Oh yeah.
Like, whether that's our safe place or whether that's just. But you know, symbolically, the imagery is quite interesting. Kevin, are you liking the film more now that we dig into it?
I think I am. I've never really thought it. I've never really thought about it on this level. But I think that that's really interesting. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad we've done that. Another moment that reminded me of Halloween actually is when she's sitting in the classroom, and the
Old lady.
old lady's walking towards her. But it reminded me of Laurie in Halloween sitting in the classroom and looking out the window, and seeing Michael a little bit,
Yeah.
which was cool. I like that.
Also a little Nightmare on Elm Street-ish too, kind of like a
when she was out in the hallway.
yeah, and she
Yeah.
sees like the old lady and stuff. And it's great because you can you can pick out these things that you can see like, oh, like this kind of reminds me of, or this is like a nice homage, but like, and it's nothing ever felt ripped off. Like it's never like cliche or anything, but
Became its own entity.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think even the locations themselves play a nice character in the film, because like when they're going to like find the guy's house, and there's just a nice little montage of all the houses they're passing as the music's playing over it, and you sort of get this sense of all these details around them, and it just really, all these little details just add up to make you feel like you're in the world.
Yeah, I always feel like I like movies that are set in these kind of like small suburban neighborhoods, because like in real life it always seems like the city is like the more big scary place. That's where like all the crime and stuff is, and like, you know, you kind of think of these small nice family neighborhoods as being like kind of like the safe comfortable cozy places. I always like that in horror movies when they kind of try to flip that and make this place that looks so kind of like comfy and nice and American.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I guess going back to the whole idea, it's about chasing, like trying to run away from death and the inevitability of that. The passage that Yara reads out on our little e-reader at the end is about the inevitability of death. Just sort of driving that theme again. I'm remembering things as we talk about it, and I'm bringing them up. But a lot of nice little touches about that. So any scene? Obviously, I think we need to mention the scene at the beach.
Oh yeah.
I like the very opening scene actually particularly well, where you first see that one girl. We can't see what it is. We just see her reaction. She's seeing something and running and driving off, and eventually she seems to accept what's about to happen to her. Her calling her father, apologizing for what she's done, her attitude and her behavior, as what we can't see at that moment is coming towards her. Her eyes are locked on it, and then next thing we see, she's dead and her body is mangled.
Yeah, no,
It really sets up the mood for later on.
Yeah, it draws you in, and even that kind of sets up the themes. The whole idea that she's realizing what a brat she's been. Yeah,
accepting it, and then being able to apologize for her actions.
Yeah, as acting like a child basically, and like growing up in that moment before death. Although, well, I mean, hopefully we all want to grow up long before death. Ideally, it's always nice to not be a child your whole life. But well, I mentioned the scene at the beach because I love how like dangerous it is when she brings out the gun, and all I can think of is she may end up shooting someone. Like,
Yeah.
and the guy that I think Greg's his name, the one that she has sex with, that ends up getting killed by his mum with her boob hanging
Brother.
out, which is like the fact that she's just randomly got like a boob hanging out is just like I almost think the entity's like really messing with the people it's about to kill by like showing them really disturbing stuff. I mean, if your mother was coming towards you with her boobs hanging out, you'd be fucking terrified too, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joseph's terrified. I can see it in his face.
She watches the show though.
Does she? Oh, good. Fantastic. Well, she knows what to do next Halloween to scare you. All right.
She's a good
So,
Christian woman.
any other scenes anyone wants to talk about, or favorite moments?
The one that really stands out for me is when like all the friends are staying over her house kind of early on, and like she's getting freaked out, and she like goes upstairs, and there's kind of like a knocking at the door, and they slowly open it up, and like her friend's there, and she's like what's going on? Then like from behind her you see that really tall guy
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
come in. That's the one that always gets me. It's like
That's a good
just
moment.
it's shot really well. Like you don't see him coming at all, and then like
Now the darkness of the hallway.
and like I feel bad for saying it because this is just like some normal guy, but there's something creepy about this guy. He's like super tall, and granted it's because he's like quiet and in his like
To
underwear.
be
or
fair, they've
whatever.
also put a lot of makeup on him to make him look sort of more
Yeah.
zombified or whatever.
Little, tall, lanky, skinny.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a really great moment. I also really like the main characters group, their relationship with each other. I love how like a sort of small group they feel like, because there's a lot of history there, and I love the scene where like Paul insists staying over to try and make her feel better, and she comes down to watch the old cheesy movie with them, and like he gives a line like, "Oh, I've not stayed over since I was like a kid," and she's like, "There's a reason for that." And it's like this little smirk they give to each other. It's like, he's a little horn dog. That's fine.
Well, something that is very minor, but something that like bugged me about the start was whenever they were introducing the characters, it just seemed very jarred, very stilted.
No, see, I like that, and I'll tell you why. Because it felt intentional to me that there was just kind of like an awkwardness into it. Because like Paul likes her, but doesn't want to knows she's going on a date and doesn't like that. And I just like the it felt like realistic, uncomfortable.
Yeah.
No, yeah. And I liked how their friend Yara sort of gave him this look, because he was like sort of looking at Jay. She was walking out the room. Like, I like that scene. I like the atmosphere that portrayed.
Very simple, but tells you a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Tells you a lot without hardly saying anything. Just a few names.
I didn't pick up on the uncomfortableness of it. I just find that it was really just.
Well, that's normal for you. That's how you
Yeah, I'll show you.
interact around most people.
All right, let's get to the ratings and get to some post-review stuff, because I want to ask Joseph some questions after we're done about something else. But let's get some ratings then. How many... This is hard. The fucking thing's invisible. How how many clamshell e-readers out of 10 are we giving It Follows? Kevin, let's start with you.
I think in my original Letterboxd review, I gave it like a 7, and I think since then it's grown on me. But not by like a ridiculous amount. Not like 9 or 10 out of 10. I think I'll give it like an 8.5 out of 8.5 clam shell e-readers out of 10.
Okay. Maybe I want more deer in your sleep then. Joseph, how many clamshell e-readers out of 10 would you give?
It's a very solid film. Probably one of my favorite horror films I've seen. I think I actually rank it as my favorite horror film of this century so far, since 2000. So I give it a solid 9 out of 10.
Tim?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely my favorite horror movie of the year. I mean, I forget when I saw it, because I know I saw like a sneak preview out here before it's in theaters. So I forget when I saw it in the year, but I've already watched it about 4 or 5 times since then. I love everything about it, and I think this is going to become like a big horror classic. Like I don't know, I think it can easily stand with like your Nightmares and Halloweens and stuff when it comes to like, you know, essential horror movies. I give it a 10 out of 10.
That is perfectly reasonable. I agree with Joseph in that it is my favourite horror film of the century so far, I think. And there's been some good ones, but this one stands above them. And I think when I first seen this, I gave it a 9.5. But I think with some rewatches, I have to agree with Tim and go with a 10. because it is one that started astronomically high and has just gotten better for me. I've now seen it 3 times, I think.
Honestly, about 6.
6. I don't rewatch films as often as most people. I feel like everyone
Yeah.
else around me rewatches
Yeah.
movies a lot more often than I do.
I always feel
And-
like it's a waste of a viewing because I feel like I could be watching something new.
Yeah, I think I kind of feel
Yeah.
like that a lot. Not always, but sometimes I feel like that. It just
Yeah.
depends on my mood, I guess.
I used to rewatch stuff like a lot in like high school and college when I had more free time, but I just don't really have as much anymore. But like the beauty of this movie is like this is a movie that I want to show people. So that's one of the reasons why I've gotten to watch it so far. Is like I've had people that haven't seen it, and especially it's especially great when it's someone that hasn't heard anything about it, and you get excited like, okay, come on, like we're gonna sit down and watch it, we're gonna go to the theater and watch it. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So that's It Follows. We all loved it. Of course, Kevin's the lowest, but 8.5 is not too low, I suppose. But we can live with that. But before we go, I do want to. Joseph wasn't here last week for our Army of Darkness and Evil Dead reboot review, and I wanted to quickly ask because have you watched last week's episode? Have you heard the our discussion from last week?
No, I didn't get to watch it yet. I was going to do it tomorrow.
Well, that's
Just
fine.
after
But
work.
I do want to ask a question because I need to spoil part of it for you though, so I can ask you this.
Okay.
So I hope you'll forgive us
That's
for
fine.
that. But Kevin hated the reboot.
Oh,
he-
he's always wrong.
Yeah, good. That's what I was wondering because me and Tim were quite positive on it, and
Yeah.
Kevin was flat out against it. He was just a little shit about the whole thing, quite frankly. So
Oh, yeah, I'll definitely watch it tomorrow. The reboot, probably one of my favorite experiences of the film. Albeit, though, I did see it in theater with my bros. It was a bros night. So it was about 7 of us, all having a great night that night watching that film. I think I gave it like a solid 7 out of 10.
I love it when Joseph goes out with some male friends. He calls it a bros night.
Yeah. It's called
It's a
a night
bros
out.
night.
Jordan, Chad, Aaron, you guys.
Yeah, they all sound like bros as
Those are
well.
bros.
Oh, Chad! This is like
Chad.
This is like Scream Queens. Chad Radwell. Oh man, I'm so assuming that's who your friend is now. All right, okay, that'll wrap us up here on this week's episode of Screams After Midnight. If you did enjoy the show, please, if you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe and all that jazz, and comment. Let us know what you thought of It Follows below. If you listen to the audio version, subscribe on iTunes. Blah 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 blah, all that stuff. Give us a review, rating, 5 stars, that kind of thing. Follow us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz.
It follows.
Yeah, It Follows on Twitter at mailed_fuzz. It can also email us at mailedfuzz@gmail.com. Also, before we go, I do want to just quickly promote something, just not to bring the tone down. But if you're familiar with our channel and stuff, you'll know that our fellow mailed fuzzer Alex Olthauser passed away last week in a tragic car accident. His mother's house flooded a month before his death, and he started a GoFundMe for it. So if you want to pay your respects, I do want to just remind everyone that they can go to the GoFundMe / Oldhauser Flood and donate money there if you want to help out his mother in this rough time. So thanks very much for that. But yeah, so now I can make everyone feel like a complete dick for promoting themselves. Kevin, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at MomoGuy123, and I'm always on the Mild Fuzz Facebook page.
And if it was going to follow Joseph, where would it follow him?
It has already followed me before on Twitter at j_93 and at Letterboxd at jm_color. But yes, that actually, you just remind me, I forgot to mention, my wife and I, we went to go see It Follows, and we went to a late showing, so we got out almost around midnight. And I think that movie is one of the ones that gave me, we were looking over our shoulder, making sure that there was nobody following us to our car.
Remember the cat?
I don't remember the cat.
Alright, Tim,
That's
where
funny
can
because
people...
the cat like ran out.
Joseph, put a plug in her, please.
Oh, jeez.
Tim, where can people find you?
Any social media stuff, it's at Tim Vargulish. other podcasts here on the Mount Fuzz Network. I'm always popping up around, and please like my comic book page, facebook.com/goatmancomics. I haven't put out a lot of stuff this year, but I got some really exciting news for some new stuff that's going to come out next year, so I'm very excited about that. So please like it so you can keep updated on it.
Excellent. You can find me on Twitter at Mail. That's not my Twitter, that's the Mail Fuzz Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at Wibble89. You can also find me on other shows here on the network, such as the TV podcast Almost Cancelled, the movies podcast 1.21 Gigawatts, and a whole host of other stuff. Do follow the channel. And on our new home, we should mention that we're on the movie channel now on Mailed Fuzz, because we're splitting into 3 separate channels. You can go and check out the TV one and the video games one separately. Follow them all, or just follow this one if you just like movies. We don't mind, either way. We're great anyway, the other ones suck. Just stay here. We're good. So thanks very much, guys. Keep watching scary movies. We'll see you next time. And, have a nice, scary end of November.
Happy Thanksgiving.